The next presenter is Ms. Kaede Tomura. Ms. Tomura's speech is entitled Living Without Discomfort.
What if you were to suddenly become disabled? How do you think people would look at you? Poor thing, they would most likely think. Now, don't you think it must be hard for persons with disabilities to live with this feeling too? What can we do to help them live without discomfort? Living without discomfort means living without prejudice or discrimination in terms of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, or economic status. One of the reasons why I became interested in this issue was because of an encounter my father had with a friend of his who is disabled. Once, when my father tried to shake his hand, his friend refused. And when my father asked why, his friend held up his deformed fingers and said, "Everybody finds this disgusting." My father replied, "I don't think it is." His friend burst into tears. Listening to this story, I felt that life must be so difficult for persons with disabilities in Japan, and that something should be done about this. According to a survey conducted by the Institute for Persons with Disabilities on Discrimination and Prejudice Against Persons with Disabilities, 59% of disabled people in Japan feel discriminated against or prejudiced in their daily lives. A majority of them experience this in the workplace and in public transport. I looked up what experience they might have had. Once, when I entered a train, I was told that people with disabilities and poor health should take the priority seats. However, I was very sad that I couldn't tell which seat was the priority due to the visual impairment. A man in his 50s with a physical disability said, "We might not mean to, but we can often cause persons with disabilities hurt and sadness by our words and actions." In Japan, there has been a Disability Discrimination Act since 2016, which prohibits government offices, companies, and businesses from discriminating against persons with disabilities. For example, the means of communication must be according to the characteristics of the disability of the person at the counter. However, many of us are not familiar with this law, nor do we realize the impact it could have on society. I would therefore like to propose two ways of distributing this information. First, we could create a poster about this law and place it in school corridors, station platforms, and other local bulletin boards. Then people would pay more attention to it. Second, workshops between able-bodied and disabled persons can be held to start an exchange of perspectives. Seeing each other's ways of thinking firsthand could strengthen our resolve to create a society that is more inclusive of perspectives. I also have a personal experience related to this issue. When I was in junior high, I would take the bus going home. At one point, my regular bus began to arrive 15 minutes late every day. I found out that this was because a person in a wheelchair was also taking this bus. At first, I was annoyed by this. The more I thought about it, the more I became concerned about the issue, so I started to read an article about persons in wheelchairs. One article was about a 4th grade girl who returned to school in a wheelchair after a surgery and a long absence. She said that she was anxious about her first day back at school. But because her classmates treated her normally instead of only worrying about her, she felt relieved and happy. When I read this article, I thought about a person with disability on my bus and realized that he had to spend a lot more time and effort just to be able to do the ordinary things I did every day. Yet, people around him looked at him coldly, just as I had done before. From that moment on, I decided that riding the bus and riding the wheelchair were the same thing. We were both just trying to get home. To eliminate inequality between able-bodied and disabled persons, what we need to do is to educate ourselves and strive to change the way we look at them. This will make it much easier for them to live without discomfort. Now, how do you feel about persons with disabilities? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Tomura. We will wait a few moments until the judges are ready.